So here it is, the updated Hayato guide. Last time I made a video on a Hayato guide, it was one of my best videos ever, and it was over 2 years ago. But since then, so many things have changed. 6th job being the biggest one that has just announced. And Hayato honestly feels harder than it's ever been to play. So I think a guide is very important to teach people how to play the class. So much has changed. We went through so many different eras, so many different bugs, but you know, we've stuck through, and now we can rejoice because I'm happy to say that as of this video, Hayato is one of the strongest classes in the entire game. Like, for sure it is. But that comes at a cost. Hayato is more difficult than it has ever been to play. But we'll go through that step by step. In this video, you're going to learn every single skill on Hayato, what it does, how to use it properly. You're going to learn the animation canceling, how to animation cancel your skills, how to move really quickly, how to optimize your damage as well, how to do covert, how to do a full rotation BA, and yeah, if I miss anything, please let me know in the comments. After all, this is just my opinion, and speaking of my opinion, why should you listen to me? Well, for starters, I feel like I've been playing Hayato for a very long time. I've been playing since Reboot's release. I've seen pretty much all the changes that have happened to it since Reboot's release, which is in 2015. I've gone to endgame on my first Hayato, previously rank 1, and this is my second Hayato, level 278. Pretty strong, and now I'm working on my third Hayato on Hyperion, which will be endgame as well. I founded the Hayato Discord with a couple of friends back in the day, and that Discord has grown to be the best, objectively, the best class Discord out there by a huge margin. But biases aside, let's get right into it. So let's move to more of a flat map so I can explain all the skills to you. Like 3 doors. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to look at every single one of Hayato's job tabs and read the skills together, because reading skills is very, 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 very important. And you would not believe how many people don't know what things do simply because they don't read their skills. So in the beginner tab, besides all the common things that every single class has, you have something called Shimada Heart, which essentially, to keep it very, very simple, Hayato gains damage based off of how much defense it has. So right now I have 80,000 defense. This caps out. It used to be unlimited a long time ago, but that's not really a thing anymore. And this damage is actually specifically crit damage. So Hayato has very, very high crit damage. But that's just a passive. You don't got to worry about it. Another thing is quick draw. So this is a very, very, very important skill for Hayato. Hayato has 2 modes that it could be in. You have normal mode like this, where I could flash jump around. I have my mobbing skill. And if you press quick draw, you'll be turned into your bossing stance, where you can't, well, actually you can flash jump. I was going to say you can't, but they changed it that you can flash jump. So that's one change that has happened since last time. And you have your bossing skill. You can also double tap left and double tap right to do a dash as well in quick draw. You have your summer rain. This actually is in the beginner tab, but you can't use it until your 4th job. Summer rain is just a full map attack that gives you a damage buff for 120 seconds, 15% damage. It does quite a lot of damage actually. And if you're in quick draw, it changes to heat degree 100 strike, which is essentially the exact same skill. But the only difference is heat degree 100 strikes moves you a distance forward. So if I were to use it, you can see it moved me forward, and I have a damage buff here. This is affected by buff duration. And that's about it for the beginner tab. So in your first tab, you have your main mobbing skill, Sunrenzan. This skill levels up as you job advance. So this is like the basic one. Just a small attack in front of you. If you were to hold it, it would have 3 different parts. So this is the first part, that's the second part, and that's the third part, where it does like a whip back. So yeah, you have Surging Blade as well. This is a very, very important movement skill for Hayato. So all it does is it lets you dash 4 times forward. So I have Surging Blade here, and if I hold it down, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This skill can also be comboed with other skills, but we'll learn that in the future with the animation canceling part of the video. But it is very, very important. Micro dashes and guaranteed set movement distances are very, very important in this game, because you know that every single time you press Surging Blade, you're going to go a certain distance no matter what. And you can gain a lot of control for your character doing that. So something to keep in mind with Surging Blade is if you were to hold it down 4 times, there's a bit of a delay between the next time you could do Surging Blade. Like right now, I'm holding down the skill, and after the 4th one, there's a bit of a pause. But if you were to only use Surging Blade 3 times, 1, 2, 3, you can immediately start Surging Blade again. So it's better to use it only 3 times instead of 4 times, because you can just spam it. As you can see. So you always want to use it 3 times. You could also immediately turn around, which does have value, instead of being stuck in your fourth Surging Blade and you have to wait a second before you could use it again. This is just a passive. Batojutsu Leap is just your flash jump. If you're in quick draw, it gets turned into Batojutsu Dash. Sure, Yusen, this is just a mobbing skill, but it's not really useful. It actually knocks up mobs. So I'll show you real quick. So it'll knock up mobs, as you can see. Kind of like Yasuo's ult, or Yasuo's Q in League. But, I mean, doesn't really do anything. Actually, let's move here. You know what? Let's get with the times and move to a more modern map. Next skill is Batojutsu Advance. So in the previous guide, I said never press this, but it does have usage now. So if you keybind it, for me, I have it on delete, and you were to just hold the skill down and nothing else, you'll see your character start doing a bunch of skills in a row. But at the same time, you'll notice that your energy is filling up. So this is actually a really good way to fill up your energy pretty quickly. Now, if you get stuck, because if you stop pressing Batojutsu Advance in the middle of it, you can't move your character. Like, I'm pressing the arrow keys. If you want to move out of this, you could simply just double tap up and you'll get out of the movement lock. So speaking of energy, this is a very, very important concept to understand on Hayato. This is a perfect time to talk about it. So you'll notice that Hayato is a gauge class, which means it has some energy meter that you need to manage. And this is the most important thing about Hayato. This is one of the many complexities to the class that you need to consider and that you need to master. So you'll notice that if you hover over it, Hayato gets a bunch of different stats for being in a certain stance. So this is your normal stance, where I'm just, jumping around while I'm mobbing and stuff. You'll get attack power, which is basically just attack percent, like on your weapon. Same thing. HP, MP, IED, and knockback resist 100%. And if you were to switch to quick draw, this changes. You get boss damage, attack speed, chance to stun, crit rate, which is very important, and knockback resist, and you get an AoE around you, this glowing thing around me that does damage to mobs or anything that it hits. So this buff that you get from your meter actually increases and decreases depending on how much energy you have. So if I were to go to 0 energy, it changes. You see the crit rate got lowered to 30%. And if I were to go to max energy, so yeah, now I'm at max energy, you can see the attack has increased to 8% and the IED has went to 25%. And in quick draw, the boss has increased to 10% and the crit rate has increased to 50%. So when you're playing Hayato, ideally you want to be at a higher energy value at all times so that your buff can be stronger from the meter. But that's pretty hard to pull off, to be at high energy all the time. But you should know that though. You should know that. So moving on to second job, Jin Sanrenzan, which is the upgraded version of our basic mob attack. It's the same skill, it's just a little bit bigger. Vapor Blade, which is incredibly important. This is your up jump skill. You can either lock it or unlock it, and the difference is if you have it unlocked, you can double tap up and use it. If you have it locked, you can't double tap up and you have to use the skill itself. So whatever you prefer, it's perfectly fine. I'm old school, so I still double tap up, but if you're able to learn it with the lock, it is faster slightly, so keep that in mind. Vapor Blade is very, 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 very important for Hayato because you can use this skill to chain with other skills to move around really quickly. So in the animation canceling part of the video, I'll explain it a lot more. But long story short, this allows Hayato to move around in almost any direction. But yeah, it's basically just your up jump. You can use it while jumping as well to go even higher. Katana Booster, this is just attack speed. Attack speed is super important for Hayato because not only does it increase your damage output, it makes all of your animation canceling much smoother and easier. So you want to obviously always have this on so you have more attack speed. This is a passive. Rising Slash, this is just another mobbing skill. It doesn't really do anything. You essentially never use it ever. It looks cool though. Falcon Dive, a very, very important Hayato skill. Something very, very good about Falcon Dive that I think is not mentioned enough is that it moves you, just like Surging Blade, it moves you a set distance guaranteed regardless of momentum. So if you were to be knocked from a boss, you press Falcon Dive, you are stopping mid-air and you are moving this right angle movement 100% of the time guaranteed. You will move up and then down every single time. So you can halt your momentum. You can go up platforms easier with it. It's a guaranteed movement. And guaranteed movements in this game are very, very important for control and realizing where your character is. You can also chain this skill together with things like Vapor Blade so that you could go up even higher. But that's for more of like a later part of the video. Military Might, this is a passive now, which is really, really good. Third job, you have Fu Sunred Zan, which is just your main mobbing attack, but even bigger. Next, you have Sweeping Sword. Sweeping Sword just moves you forward and backward, kind of like in a rubber band motion. So you'll move forward and then backward. You can actually spam this skill. If you were to animation cancel it, you could actually stay in the air, but we'll get to that. We'll get to more details on that later. So Whirlwind Cut, this is a very important skill as well. This is another guaranteed movement, just like Sweeping Sword as well. This is another guaranteed movement. Hayato has a lot of guaranteed set distance movement skills that will always move you to that location. So if you were to use Whirlwind Cut, it moves you kind of like in a triangle movement. You'll move up and then down, as you can see. You move up and down. And this first initial part of moving up is a teleport. So you could use it on things like Lotus to go through lasers. So I'll show you an example real quick. So Lotus phase 1, you know, you want to get through these lasers, you can use Whirlwind Cut to go through. You got to walk up right next to it and use Whirlwind Cut. So yeah, that's how you use Whirlwind Cut. Willow Dodge. Now, this is a very interesting skill. If you read it, it says, after dodging an attack, gain a chance to get boosted attack damage, stacks up to 5 times. So when this skill stacks, it says damage plus 6%, but that actually is attack power 6% per stack. So up to 30% attack. There's not that many uses for this skill, but one thing that it can be used in is when you get slowed. If you are slowed, like for example in Lotus, this will count as stacking Willow Dodge and you'll gain up to 30% attack. So I'll give you an example. I'll show you in Lotus so that you understand what I mean. So we're in phase 3 Lotus. We're gonna, oh, there it is. There it is. Perfect time. He does the green gas attack and you'll see that Willow Dodge is stacking here, right? And it's giving me a really big buff. So whenever you're in that green gas, which slows you, you have the Willow Dodge buff, and this will give you 30% attack. So right now, I'm at 74. Oh, well, remove this. Right now, we're at 49 mil range, and when it goes away, we'll see how much it gives me. See, it's gone. Now I'm at 34 mil range. So I gained 15 mil range pretty much just from Willow Dodge, which is a lot. Like, that's a lot. So I'm gonna go stand in it again, the green gas. And you'll see Willow Dodge stacking up. And now I'm at 45 mil range again, as you can see. So I gained so much damage just from standing in that green gas. Whereas normally most classes would want to avoid it because it slows you. But Hayato, you actually want to stand in it so that you could stack your Willow Dodge buff. So Merciless Blade, this is just a passive for your attacks. Warrior's Heart, this is Hayato's lifesteal ability. So this is very, very, very important to Hayato. And a lot of people like to shit on Hayato because we have lifesteal, which does of course make things easier, but in my opinion, I think it should be more lifesteal and it's not enough. So haha, I'm just being facetious. But yeah, so anytime any of Hayato's abilities does damage, you get healed. So you have a chance to recover 4% of your max HP every single time you do damage. So if I were to take some damage here, see, I've taken some damage. If I were to just hit these mobs without even killing them, I'm healing. Watch my health go up. So anytime that Hayato does damage, you'll heal up. You have lifesteal. And the lifesteal is very, 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 very useful. You can heal up pretty much to full. If you're just attacking all the time, you'll heal up the most. So Hayato is actually safest when you're hitting a boss. because you're healing the entire time. If you're constantly running away, you won't be able to heal yourself by hitting anything. So you actually benefit a lot just from having DPS uptime because you'll be able to heal more. Dankusen. So this is Hayato's, this is the movement skill that people see Hayato use. And it's super fast. If you were to just press Dankusen, it's a dash forward. I'm holding down Dankusen right now, and you can see there's quite a bit of end delay between Dankusens. But with the animation canceling that we'll learn later, you can reduce this end delay to nothing and move really fast, kind of like this, as you can see. So fourth job, you have Rai Sanrenzan, which is your main attacking skill. This is the biggest version of it until sixth job, and then if obviously in quick draw, it switches to Rai Blade Flash, which is your main skill. Akatsuki Trace, which is a new skill that we got. This is a attack that procs automatically whenever you deal damage. So let's go hit something real quick. So we have this dummy here. And watch as I hit the dummy, you'll see a moon icon appear. If you look very closely, you'll see a moon icon right here. Maybe it's easier to see with this. You'll see it like flashing for a second, this moon icon in blue. This moon icon is Akatsuki Trace. This right here, this moon icon is Akatsuki Trace proccing, doing extra damage while I'm using my main attack. So this is just bonus damage, and it's very nice to have. So next you have Shinsoku. Previously Shinsoku was a skill that you could hold down and was Hayato's Hurricane skill. But they actually completely reworked it so that it has a cooldown. It has a cooldown of 15 seconds. Yes, this is affected by cooldown hat. And it just does a short burst of damage. And it's actually very strong. You want to use it off cooldown all the time when you're bossing. So if you were to press it in normal mobbing stance, I'm pressing it right now, it doesn't do anything. It actually does something later in the animation canceling part of the video. But I'll explain that when we get there. But if you were to just use it, you have to pay attention because it's going to go away very quickly. It just does a quick burst of damage. That's it. That's it. You can't hold it down. It just does a quick burst of damage. Now, the interesting thing about Shinsoku is as long as it hits the target, even for a split second, it'll do all of the damage that the skill offers. So you don't have to get the entire animation off. Like, for example, if I just do this and then immediately turn around, you'll notice that some of the animation of the skill obviously wasn't hitting the target. But as long as you get just one frame of the attack, all of the damage will apply to the target. So you don't have to like sit here and make sure that the entire animation is going off on the target. You can just tap the target once and that's it. So the next skill is Hitakuri Strike. This is our iframe. It also gives you a crit rate boost. So if you're mobbing and you're very low in crit rate, you should use it off cooldown because it increases your crit rate by 45%. But essentially, as soon as you press it, the moment you press the skill, you are iframed for 3 seconds. So if I were to press it, I'm actually iframed for 3 seconds. There's no indicator for it at the top that says you're iframed or something. So it's something that you're just going to have to get used to. But when you do use it, it gets turned into a different skill called Hitakuri Angle. And this has a 6-second cooldown. It does pretty decent damage while mobbing. Essentially, this just moves you at an angle either up or down. If you're holding down, you'll move at a down angle. But if you're just not holding anything, it'll move you up. So this is actually really important for movement as well. And we'll talk about that later. But if I were to use it downward, as you can see, I could also go down with it. So next skill is Jinsoku. This is just a passive. Cleaver is another passive that gives you damage and ID. Katsuki Warrior, this is just your Maple Warrior. It gives you stats. Hero's Will, very important skill. It removes all debilitating stuns or statuses on you. So essentially, this just removes any debuffs off of you. 6-minute cooldown. Eye for an Eye. Personally, I never turn this on. This reflects damage back to enemies. So if I were to take damage by something, let's say a bunch of mobs, the mobs will take damage back because it's damage reflect. I believe this is still a bug in the game. If you get hit by too many mobs, you'll DC. So I just never ever turn it on ever. So as you can see, the mobs are taking damage. Just me walking past them, they're taking damage. But there's a chance to DC, I believe. So yeah, I just stay on the safer side and don't use it at all. Obviously, it does increase your damage a little bit, but it doesn't increase it that much, so it's whatever. It's not a big deal. Bloodletter is just the bleed. Every time Hayato does damage, the mobs bleed and deal more and take extra damage. Tornado Blade, this skill is pretty much useless. It used to stun targets, but it doesn't really anymore. there's really no point for it. Sudden Strike is a very important skill. You should be using it every 30 seconds because it applies a debuff to whatever target. So if you're in a boss, it'll make your whole party and yourself deal 20% extra boss damage. So you wanna debuff the boss every 30 seconds. On top of that, it gives you a super stance. So what's a super stance? Normally, you have knockback resistance, right? 100%. Pretty much every single class has it. Means that when you're getting hit by mobs and stuff, you're not gonna get like pushed around and stuff. But certain attacks will push you regardless of your knockback resist, like the push in Lotus, for example. But if I were to use Sudden Strike, you won't be pushed. This keeps you in position no matter what. Lotus is gonna try to push me. I'm gonna press Sudden Strike. As you can see, the push didn't work. He's gonna try to push me again. I press Sudden Strike. Doesn't work. And you see, I didn't press Sudden Strike there. I got pushed. So that's what I mean by Sudden Strike. It's very, very strong. It's a super stance. And this is your last passive, Bushido's Will. So that's the 4th job. We're going to move on to the hyper skills. Just like every other class, Hayato has 3 hyper skills. Falcon's Honor is an incredibly important hyper skill. It's one of your main mobbing skills, a bossing skill, and it recovers energy. So every single time you press Falcon's Honor, it gives you plus 100 energy. So I'm at 118 right now. And if I were to press it again, you know, I'll get to 218. So since it's one of your main mobbing skills as well, it hits a lot of targets and has a really, really big hitbox, as you can see. This is a good time to mention another thing about Hayato's energy system. So Hayato's energy system, not only can you gain energy just from using skills like Falcon's Honor that give you plus 100 outright, depending on what your stance is. So if you're in normal mobbing stance, every single time you kill something in normal stance, you will gain 5 energy. So if you notice, while I was using Falcon's Honor, I was also killing monsters, so I gained more energy. So if I were to kill 10 monsters while using Falcon's Honor, I would gain 150 energy because this skill gives me 100 and each mob gives me 5, and since I killed 10 mobs, I would gain 50. So I would gain 150. But if you were in bossing stance, this works differently. Every single time you hit something, you gain 2 energy, regardless of if it's dying or not. You gain 2 energy no matter what. And if you were to kill something, you gain 2 energy per kill. So if I were to go back here, and if I were to hit some mobs, regardless of them dying or not, I'm gaining 2 energy per hit no matter what. And if I were to use Falcon's Honor, I gained 100 plus 2 because I hit the monsters as well. So gaining energy in bossing is a lot easier because you're constantly hitting a boss the entire time. Obviously, you don't want to do this when mobbing because your energy gain will be much slower and you're only targeting like 2 enemies at a time. But if I were to switch to normal stance and just mob and kill a bunch of enemies, you'll see that I'm actually gaining quite a bit of energy just from killing things with my basic attack. And that will be amplified even more if I use Falcon's Honor. You see, I didn't gain 100 there. I gained like 130 because I killed 6 things. Okay, so moving on, you have Princess's Vow. This is just the standard 60-second buff that gives you 10% damage. And then you have God of Blades. So God of Blades is actually a very, very strong buff. Not only because it gives you 50 attack for 30 seconds, it also gives you flat out 100 elemental resist. And elemental resist is very, very important for this status resistance over here. It's very important for stuns and any kind of debuff because it makes those debuffs last a lot less long. So for example, if you're in C-Vel and you have a rock falling on your head, it'll stun you and you can't move. But if you have God of Blades on, I'm at 167, you can see that the abnormal status duration is reduced by 63% now. That's actually quite a lot. So without it, it's at 52%, and with it, it was at 63%. So I went from 52% reduction to 63%. That's actually a 21% increase in between those two numbers. So stuns would last 21% less just because I have God of Blades on, which is a massive amount. Being stunned pretty much 20% less of the time can save your life in so many scenarios. And that's all the hyper skills. If we move on to the V skills, Hayato, just like every other class, has 4 V skills. Iaijutsu Phantom Blade, Instant Slice, Batsujutsu Ultimate Will God of Blades, and Batsujutsu Zanko. You do have these 2 other common skills. These are for Hayato and Kana. They're not technically Hayato specific skills, but we'll go over them as well, as they're very, very, very important to the class. But we'll start with each V skill individually. So Iaijutsu Phantom Blade, this is the bread and butter in Hayato. This skill in its entirety makes the class work. This is how you need to manage your energy. This is what takes up your energy. This is what gives you all of your damage. If you read it, it says successful hits grant a buff adding 23% final damage per stack for 33 seconds. So this can stack up to 5 times, giving you 23% final damage each stack, totaling 115% final damage. So using this skill gives you all of your damage. And if you were to drop it because it's a buff, you lose all of your damage essentially. So maintaining the Phantom Blade buff is the most important thing you have to know for Hayato. This is like the fundamental Hayato mechanic that you need to master. So we have this target here, and we're at 777 energy. Every single time you want to use Phantom Blade, it costs 200 energy. The skill doesn't have a cooldown, but it costs 200. It costs 200 energy. So you want to make sure that you always have enough energy to recast this skill before the buff expires. So if we just use it once, there's a short attack in front of me, and you can see this buff has appeared on my top right. If this buff expires, I will completely lose the buff that I get from Phantom Blade. So you'll see my final damage over here increase every time I use it. So if I use it again, boom, you see now I'm at 140 and my range increased a ton. And now this skill is refreshed. It goes back to 33 seconds and has a 2 on it. If I were to use it again, boom, it's refreshed. 33 seconds, I'm at 178 final damage. And so I'm getting stronger and stronger. And it stacks up to 5 times. So let me gain some energy real quick. So if I were to use it again, 4th one, each Phantom Blade has a different animation until you reach the 5th one. So I'm at 4, I'm at 216 final damage, and finally 5, which is kind of like a rectangle in front of you. This is the last stack, and I'm at 254% final damage. And you can see my range increased so much, like over double, because this skill just gives you so much damage. So if I want to keep up the skill, all you have to do is press Phantom Blade again, and it'll refresh it and maintain at 5. But if let's say I'm at 0 energy, and I'm like, oh no, like, you know, I don't have any more energy left and I can't use it. When the skill drops, it doesn't drop incrementally. It's not going to go down to 4 and then 3 and then 2 like Miha's Royal Guard. It goes down to 0. So if you were to lose this skill, you essentially lose all of your damage, and you have to stack up to 5 all the way again, which is a huge hassle because you have to get your energy back to 1,000. So you want to just always maintain the 5 stack. So I'm about to drop it right here, and you'll see that I'm going to lose so much damage. I'm back to 65 FD, and I'm at 32 mil range. So I just lost like a ton of my damage just because of that. But that's how Phantom Blade works. It's a very important bossing skill, and it's one of your main mobbing skills as well, because it's like an FMA as well. It hits 15 targets and hits them really hard. Next skill is Batsujutsu Zanko. So this is Hayato's burst skill. This recently got a very big buff. Not only is it a burst skill, it also iframes you for 5 seconds upon use. And on top of that, it gives you 700 energy back. So right now I'm at 0 energy. If I were to press it, boom, I'm at 700. And since I'm in bossing stance and I hit something, I gain 2 energy. So I'm at 702. It does a ton of lines. I believe it does 165 lines exactly. And it hits very hard. So you can use this to get energy back. You can use it to get an iframe. Upon use, it's a 5-second iframe. But the best way to use it is for your burst, strictly for damage. Now, the weird thing about Batsujutsu Zanko is, since I only hit 1 target, it did 165 lines. All of the damage from the skill is on that 1 target. But if I were to use it as a mobbing skill, because it hits 11 targets, all of the damage gets split amongst that 11. So instead of being hyper focused on 1 target, it would be used on the damage would be split amongst 11 targets, which does have its benefits. You know, you can You can mob with it. You can get an extra full map attack with it. But when you're in bossing, let's say you're in Lucid and a bunch of golems spawn, you don't want the damage to get split on the golems. You want to make sure that you're using it on a target by itself only for the maximum amount of damage. So the skill is about to come up here, and you'll see how the line count isn't as much. So I hit a bunch of targets. I have a symbol above their head. And it's only, you know, it's only like 15 lines on each target. So it's not that many. But that's how Zanko works. Your next skill is Batujutsu Ultimate Will, God of Blades. Your Susanoo. Everybody calls it Susanoo. And if you're really in the deep Hayato lore, you call it Jamal. But yeah, that's besides the point. So essentially what this does is it's a really big summon that lasts for 30 seconds. And it does continuous damage while it's out. And when it goes away, it does a big explosion damage at the end. So if you play Ice Lightning, it's very, very similar to Ice Lightning's summon as well. The Spirit of Snow, I believe it's called. But also on top of that, it gives you energy. It gives you up to 800 energy back, but it costs 150 energy to use. So let's use this skill. So I'm going to summon this guy, and you're going to see that he does damage around him. He has a really, really huge hitbox, and he's hitting these mobs. Let's go down to 0 energy. So now that I'm at 0 energy, when he goes away, he's going to give me a ton of energy back. You can also use the skill again to cancel him early and get your energy back immediately. And he's going to do a big explosion at the end. That does a ton of damage. So he's about to pop here. Boom. He gave me 544 energy back because that's how many mobs he's killed while he was active. But in a boss, it gives you a lot more energy. Like Susanoo functions differently when it's mobbing and when it's bossing. It gives you different energy back depending on what the target is. But that's how that works. And then your fourth V skill is Instant Slice. This is a short cooldown full map attack, and it does quite a lot of damage. This is actually your strongest mobbing skill. It does more damage than Instant Slice, and it's your easiest skill to one-shot with. All it does is, in a quick flash, pretty much everything on your screen takes damage, and it's very, very, very strong. You should be using this pretty much off cooldown as well, and you can use this to cancel other skills as animation, but we'll get to that later. So if we use it on a bunch of mobs, you can see it hit 15 targets and it one-shot all of them. And this is at 0 stacks of energy as well. So it's very, very, very strong. Very strong, very low cooldown as well. Very simple to understand. And it gives you energy back because you're killing mobs with it. And moving on, we have Hayato's Sakuno's Blessing, and we have Sengoku Force. So like I said before, these are not specific Hayato skills. Kana has them too, but they're very important to the kit, so we're going to talk about it as well. So Sengoku Force, there's 4 of them. As you can see, it says Kenshin, Haruaki, Ayame, and Shingen. Each one that comes out does a different they do different amounts of damage, and they give you different buffs. So Kenshin gives you IAD, Haruaki gives you damage reduction, Ayame gives you crit damage, and Shingen gives you attack power. So there's a bit of RNG in Sengoku Force. Ideally, you want to roll the ones that give you the most amount of damage, being Ayame and Shingen, because it gives you crit damage and attack. If you're low on IAD, actually the 22 IAD from Kenshin can be better. So it kind of just depends. But yeah, so if you were to press it right here, 2 of them come out. Oh, I got lucky. These are the 2 strong ones. So Ayame gives me crit damage and Shingen gives me attack. And they'll just follow me around and target anything that can be hit, basically. So if I go here, they're going to start attacking the mobs when the mobs spawn. So this is really, really good for clearing maps. As you can see, like they're automatic. Like they just attack things on sight. And on top of that, they're really, really loud. So keep that in mind. And they also give me a buff. So you can see my crit damage is buffed up right now. I'm at 102 because of Ayame being out. And when she goes away, it'll go down. See, now I'm at 85. They're very, very strong for bosses as well because they'll just target the boss the entire time. And they do AoE damage. So if there's like golems and loose or something, they'll hit the golems too. Next you have Princess Akuno's Blessing. So this is Hayato's kind of like goddess ability. It gives you 50% final damage when it's fully stacked up, but initially it starts at 15%. So it kind of works like Explorer Mage's Infinity, if you know how that works. So I'm going to press it. And you're going to see that you have a buff at the top right. And as this buff continues, I'm going to gain more and more final damage. So watch closely. You know, I went from 96 to 102. And then as it keeps going, I'm at 109. So I'm getting stronger and stronger and stronger as this buff progresses. And this buff is the reason why Hayato is known as a back-ended class. So what that means is all of your damage, if you were to graph it on a curve, you will peak in the later... You will get stronger and stronger as the boss fight goes on. Whereas other classes like Night Lord, for example, is very front-loaded. As soon as the boss starts, they'll do their burst immediately. And their burst starts all the way at the start. But for us, we want to wait for Sukuna to reach its peak, then use all of our burst at the end, because that's when we're at our highest amount of final damage. As you can see, I'm going to use it again since it stacks 2 times, and it's 4 minutes per stack. The other cool thing about Sukuna's Blessing is it gives you a free Hero's Will. So if I were to use it, while this skill is active, and let's say something stuns me, I actually won't get stunned. Only once. But yeah, so... like I said before, we get stronger and stronger as the skill progresses. So that's why Hayato is a back-ended class, because we want to use all of our things, all of our abilities when this is at its maximum. Let's say when there's like 10 seconds left, that's when you want to start unloading all of your abilities at once. But that's all of Hayato's 5th job skills pretty much. Next, we're going to move on to 6th job. But for that, we're going to have to switch servers. Okay, so now we're on my other Hayato that has 6th job. And in the Hexa Matrix, this is brand new. The only thing that is unlocked so far that changed anything is your Origin skill, Jin Quick Draw. And your Mastery skill, Hexa Rai Sunrinzan and Hexa Rai Blade Flash. Obviously, as we unlock more skills, I'll make more videos talking about them. But for now, we have these 2 skills. So once you unlock Hexa Rai Sunrinzan and Hexa Rai Blade Flash, your main attacks change. So this is how it looks in the 6th job version. It's a lot bigger, your main attack. This is the first part. And in my opinion, it's also faster. The animation is faster. So this is the first part. That's the second part right there, where it goes like horizontal. And then the third part is like a big AoE around you. So your momming skill, the damage increases a tremendous amount when you unlock your 6th job. And then your bossing skill, get this. This is actually so ridiculous. Look how crazy Hayato's bossing skill is in 6th job. It's so much bigger. Like the hitbox is massive. You can outrange so many bosses just because of how big this skill is now. So that's your 2 main abilities when you have 6th job. And then of course you have your Jin Quick Draw, which is your Origin skill. This is the new fancy skill, and in my opinion is the best Origin skill in the game. So since Origin skill has a 6-minute cooldown, we're going to have to talk about a lot instead of waiting every 6 minutes to reuse this skill and learning from it every single time. So if you read it, it says activates 10 chase cuts. I'm reading down here. Activates 10 chase cuts that deal 90% damage up to 15 enemies 8 times. Then applies the Jin Quick Draw buff on Hayato for up to 10 seconds. Up to 10 seconds, which is very important to understand. It doesn't apply it for 10 seconds. It's not like when you press it, you immediately have a 10-second buff. No, it actually only applies the 10% final damage buff while this skill is active. So since you can cancel this skill early, if you were to finish it early, you will lose that 10% final damage buff. So increases Hayato's final damage by 10% while the buff is active. So while you use this, you can use it 3 times. You can press the button again 3 times while it's active to do 3 massive amounts of damage. First, second, and third strike, as it says. Activates 5 chase cuts that deal a certain amount of damage. And each cut is stronger than the previous one, and it recovers a certain amount of energy. So every single time you use it, you gain 100 energy, then 150, then 200 energy back, which is very cool. And when the animation fully closes, at the end, you do an insane explosion, massive amount of damage. So let's go try that on a dummy. So we have our dummy here. And just to reiterate, this skill works in 5 different parts. The first part is when you initially use it. When you initially use it, it does a massive amount of damage just from the opening animation. And while you're in the Jin Quick Draw Origin skill, you can use the skill 3 times to do a massive amount of damage. And if you were to press the skill a 4th time, it'll close and do the big explosion. But if you don't press it a 4th time, it'll automatically close when the 10 seconds is up. And while the skill is active, you have a 10% final damage buff increase. So I'm going to press it and watch carefully. I'm going to press it. It does a bunch of damage just from the opening. And the background changes. I'm going to press it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And you can see how my energy went up too. And the aura is getting bigger, meaning I'm getting stronger. And this is the closing and ending animation. And this does a huge amount of damage. So that's how Hayato's origin skill works. It is a very, very strong and good origin skill. Not only just from the raw damage it does, but because it's so quick. Now, it's good to have a quick origin skill because you can fit it in all of your buffs. If you remember when we talked about Princess Sukuno's Blessing, you want to unload all of your abilities when you're at the maximum amount of fire damage from this skill. The maximum amount of fire damage from this skill doesn't last that long. It'll last only like 5 seconds. 10 seconds if you want to give yourself a bit of more time. So having the origin skill be so quick is very, very convenient because you can unload all of it while you're at your peak damage. So we're going to wait for the origin skill to come up, and I'm going to show you what happens if you hold down the skill, because if you choose to use it, if you want to use it as quickly as possible, you can also just hold down the skill and it'll be very, very quick. Alright, after waiting a million years, we finally have our origin skill back up. So alternatively, instead of using it slowly, ideally you should use it slowly in my opinion, so that you can get off all of your other skills within the 10% final damage buff. But you can also just use it very, very quickly if you want as well. So you can literally just hold it down. I'm just going to hold down my M key, which is what it's on. 1, 2, 3, and close. So that took almost no time at all. The boss is literally still bound from the origin skill, and it did all of the damage. So it is, you know, you can use it in 2 different ways if you want to, but that's basically how the origin skill works. It's very, very, very good, and I'm very, very, very happy with it. But that's Hayato's 6th job for the time being. If you want to know what 6th job skills to max in what order, the Hayato Discord has a guide. Me personally, I'm not afraid to live a little and make my own build, but like, you know, ideally you should just stick to the Hayato Discord one. But let's just say I'm experimenting, but you know, all good. Okay, so that's basically how every single skill in Hayato works. If I missed anything, or if you still have any questions about it, please let me know. But we're gonna move on to the animation canceling part of the video. So now that we know what Hayato does, how the skills work, how the energy works, and all that, we need to know how to move around on Hayato. Since this class has a lot of different options for movement skills, we need to understand how they all work together, how they chain together, and what your options are during boss fights. Now, something to keep in mind that's very, very, very important is, as of making this video, some of the movement skills are actually bugged, and we're trying to fix them by sending in tickets and letting Nexon know. They have acknowledged it, but we'll just have to wait and see and hope that things get fixed. But for the time being, I'm going to share with you some of the most important animation canceling that still works and that you can use to help yourself survive better and optimize your damage more. So in my opinion, I would say that the 3 most important skills for your animation canceling are your Surging Blade, your Dankusen, and your Vapor Blade. So each one of these skills individually have some sort of end lag to them, like Dankusen, Surging Blade, and Vapor Blade. They all have some sort of condition that you need to cancel so that you can move around quicker. And how do you cancel your skills? You can do it in a few different ways. So the best way to cancel your skills is in normal stance specifically is with Shinsoku. So Shinsoku in normal stance doesn't do anything, but you can use it to animation cancel your skills. So the best way to demonstrate this is with Vapor Blade, your up jump. So if I were to just use Vapor Blade, you'll see that my Hayato, I can't really do anything after my jump. I'm just jumping and falling. And you can see that because my katana is still out if you watch her hand. And I'm kind of stuck in this animation. But if I were to press Shinsoku before the apex of my jump, before I reach the top, you'll see that my animation is different. I have the same animation as if I'm just jumping normally. So that actually removes the lock from Vapor Blade and allows me to jump around or dash around after Vapor Blade or do anything I want after Vapor Blade. So it's very, very important. You need to master this. It is incredibly important. I would say that canceling the Vapor Blade up jump is the most important animation cancel to learn on Hayato, like for sure. For sure. Because this allows you to move around in any way that you want. If you don't animation cancel, then you're just going to be stuck. You're just going to be falling all the time. And that is very, very, very bad. So another animation cancel that is very, very important is being able to move around very quickly in Dankusen. So I showed this many times, but if you don't animation cancel Dankusen, it has an end delay. But if you were to press Dankusen with Surging Blade, you'll notice that the end delay of Dankusen isn't there anymore, and I immediately start Surging Blading. So you can Dankusen and just Surging Blade, like that. But there's actually a way that you can Dankusen and Surging Blade multiple times. Something to keep in mind as well that's very important is that you need attack speed. Attack speed makes all of your movement skills much easier to chain together. Like that. You can see I used Dankusen 3 times in a row there. How you do that animation cancel is you need to press Dankusen and Surging Blade together 3 times in a row. So this is Dankusen and Surging Blade by themselves. After that first initial Dankusen and Surging Blade, you need to press Dankusen and Surging Blade together 3 times in quick succession. There is a rhythm to it, so you're going to have to practice a lot. Do literally what I'm doing right now and sit in a town and just practice this. Just like that. Visually, it looks like I'm just pressing Dankusen 3 times in a row, but my key inputs is I'm actually pressing Dankusen and Surging Blade together 3 times in a row, even though it doesn't show that Surging Blade is being used, and it just looks like I'm using Dankusen. So this is how you animation cancel in normal stance, but in quick draw, it's actually different. And I believe that this is a bug right now, because usually even in quick draw, we should be able to use Shinsoku to animation cancel, but since Shinsoku has a cooldown now, while this is on cooldown, you actually can't use it to animation cancel. So previously I was using Shinsoku to animation cancel my up jump, but it actually doesn't work because it's on cooldown, and it only works when it's off cooldown. But when it's up and I already use it, I animation canceled, but I can only do it once because it consumes the cooldown. So alternatively, you can actually use Surging Blade to cancel your Vapor Blade. So if I press Surging Blade, I'm pressing if I press Surging Blade before the top of my jump, you see I'm still canceling it. I'm still canceling it even though Shinsoku is on cooldown right now. Another way that you could do it, and this is the way that I prefer, is you can use your basic attack. So not only will this do more damage, it also removes the lock off of your Vapor Blade. So I like doing this because you can just deal more damage while you're animation canceling. And for Dankusen, previously you would use your Vryblade Flash to cancel Dankusen, but that's not a thing anymore. I believe this is a bug at the moment, but you would be able to use Dankusen infinitely before and just dash across the map however much you want, which you can't do anymore for some reason. And actually, this is for sure a bug because this has nothing to do with Surging Blade, and it should still function the same. I don't understand why they would remove that, but it's very annoying. So alternatively, you can do the Dankusen Surging Blade just like in normal stance. We could do it in bossing stance as well, just like that. Now, you can still go really fast, but it's not as fast as before, which is the problem. I really hate when they restrict Hayato's movement for no reason. Like, it's not in the patch notes. It's not anything. There's no reasoning for it. It's just all of a sudden we just can't do what we used to be able to do anymore. So you can still go really far with the Surging Blade Dankusen cancel. It's still very, very useful. And in most situations, you're not going to need to go any further than this distance. Like, this is good enough for most situations. But the fact that we still can't cancel Dankusen infinitely like we used to is very, very annoying. But I would say that these two animation cancels are the most important. Being able to dash really quickly with Surging Blade and being able to cancel your up jump and doing whatever movement skills you want to after the up jump. I think those are very, very important. There are some other animation cancels that can have some use. So for example, I think that up jumping with Vapor Blade is very, very useful because you just increase your vertical height even more. You can see how high I'm going. You can up jump, cancel, do a double flash jump to go up even higher, and then Falcon Dive at the top to go. I'm even touching almost the top of the whole entire map just by doing this. It's very insane how high you can go this way. Another thing that you can do is you can use your sweeping sword, which is this move. You can use it midair and cancel with Shinsoku to use it multiple times in a row. So you can actually stall in the air a lot by doing this. And with more attack speed, you can stall in the air for even longer because the animation cancels are affected by attack speed. Now, you can only do this in normal stance. Previously, you could do it in quick draw and stay in the air forever. But now you can't do that anymore because of Shinsoku having a cooldown. It doesn't even work with Surging Blade trying to cancel it instead. So the air stall in bossing mode is essentially dead at the moment unless they fix it. So another very important animation cancel that you need to know is when it comes to your dash. If I were to just double tap left and right, you do this dash, right? So I could chain that with my flash jump and do a jump flash. You could do a flash jump double dash, which sends you even further. Now, what's interesting about this double dash is this double dash can be reset mid-air with Vapor Blade and with Hitakiri diagonal. So if I were to dash, up jump, and then you have to cancel your up jump and dash again, you could do 2 dashes mid-air, just like that. You can double dash, up jump, double dash. And you can actually get a 3rd dash in if you use Hitakiri Strike angle because it cancels your dash again. So you can dash, up jump, dash Hitakiri diagonal, and dash again. So you could go really, really far. And this might seem excessive, but it actually is very, very useful for certain fights. And you could go an extremely far distance. You can dash, up jump, dash, Hitakiri diagonal, dash again. And you could even change skills after that last dash too. So you can dash, up jump, dash, diagonal, dash, Falcon Dive to go even further. And it is a lot of inputs, but once you understand animation canceling, you can get used to it. Something else that's worth mentioning is Whirlwind Cut. I actually use it a lot to stall in air. So I would just up jump and press like Whirlwind Cut, and it keeps me in the air for like an extra second. And it actually is very useful. It saves me quite a lot. So that's kind of just like the movement skill cancels. There's also some cancels that you can use for bossing as well. So Summer Rain, this is one of your mobbing skills. How Summer Rain and Hitakiri 100 Strike work is if you were to use another skill's animation in the middle of these two skills' animations, it will override the movement lock you get from using these two skills and allow you to keep moving. So the best way to cancel Summer Rain is with your double flash jump. So if you look very closely, Hayato does a flip in the second flash jump, and that flip is long enough to cancel this animation. So if you were to use Summer Rain in the middle of your second flash jump, it won't keep you locked in this skill anymore. So here's an example. You see, I can move around and do whatever I want because I used it in the middle of my second flash jump. So that's the best way to animation cancel this skill. And if you want to animation cancel a Hitakiri 100 Strike, you do it with Ride Blade Flash. If you look very closely, your main mobbing skill, or your main attacking skill, Ride Blade Flash, actually has 2 parts to its animation. It has its initial part that's a very thin line that comes out, and then it kind of expands back here and becomes a little bit wider. So during that initial part that's coming out, if you were to press Hitakiri 100 Strike, the part where it expands and gets wider will happen during the 100 Strikes animation and then cancel the 100 Strikes animation movement lock, which I'll show you right here. So you can see there that as my Ride Blade Flash was coming out, I casted 100 Strike and I was able to move around. I was able to move around still. And that's very, very useful because you never want to be locked in animation at all while you're pressing your skills. It can lead to certain death. So another thing that you could do to animation cancel is Falcon's Honor. They actually increased the cast time a lot, so you almost don't even need to cancel it anymore. If you just press Falcon's Honor, you're able to walk very shortly after. There is still a slight delay, but that delay got reduced a ton. So what you can do is you can actually use Insta Slice to completely get rid of that delay. So if I press Insta Slice, I'm instantly able to move again. And Insta Slice not only cancels Falcon's Honor, you can actually also cancel Zonko with it as well. So if we go to a map with mobs, like this map, normally Zonko will keep me locked in position and I can't move. But you can use Insta Slice to get out of Zonko instantly. So if I press Zonko and then Insta Slice, I'm able to move right away. I'm not locked into animation at all, which is very, very useful. So whenever you're about to use Zonko, check if your Insta Slice is up and make sure that you have it so that you are not locked in Zonko at all and you could keep attacking with other skills. In my opinion, I think that those are the most important animation cancels. If there's anything else that is really, really important, please let me know. But those are the ones that you use the most and that you should all learn. So for the final part of the video, I'm going to show you guys how to optimize your damage and how to actually boss on this class properly. Alright, so this part of the video, I'm going to show you guys how to do a 40-second burst and a full rotation 6-minute DPS check on Hayato. Now that New Age is out and the origin skills are out, we need to do full 6-minute tests to see how strong we are. It does take a while and it does take a lot of practice. So don't expect to get your BAs right on the first try or even the first 5 tries. They take a lot of practice to do, and I'm going to show you how to do it and do a voiceover of exactly what I'm doing. But before I start, I'm going to explain a few things that you need to keep in mind with Hayato, things that are brand new. So one of the most important things that you have to do is you have to press Shinsoku off cooldown. You have to always remember to upkeep this. Every single time it's up, press it. And on top of that, you have to always remember to debuff. You have to always remember to debuff with Sudden Strike. You have to always remember to re-up your Sudden Strike buff. Now, it's pretty hard to remember to do absolutely every single thing on Hayato. Even I forget to sometimes press my Sudden Strike. But I'm telling you what you should do and to try your best to remember to do these things. The other thing to remember is to try and never overcap on energy. It's really easy to overcap on energy because you have Zonko that gives you 700, Susanoo that gives you 800, and your origin skill that gives you 450. So a lot of these things can result in you overcapping energy, but we'll try our best to not do that. Now, for the 40-second BA, what we want to ideally do is we want to pop our Jin quick draw when there's around 15 seconds of Sukuno's left. You could do it at 20 seconds to be safe, but the point is you want to be able to use your Zonko and Susanoo explosion while you have this buff active so that you can get the bonus 10% final damage on these two skills, because this obviously gives you a buff. And for the full rotation BA, it gets a little complicated with Sukuno's blessing. Since we're doing a 6-minute rotation and this skill comes up only every 4 minutes, usually when you enter a boss, you have both charges. And by the time that you want to use your second origin skill, if you were to use Sukuno's off cooldown every single 2 minutes, you wouldn't have your origin skill with it. So what we're going to have to do for a full rotation BA is we're going to have to only use Sukuno's 2 times, even though it's going to be up for one of the 2 minutes. We're actually going to skip a use of it because you must have Sukuno's for every single origin skill. And the only way to do that is to skip a use of Sukuno's at some point during the 6-minute rotation. So we're going to use the first 2 rotations of Sukuno's and we're going to skip the third one, because that third one, we're going to save Sukuno's for the origin skill. But without further ado, I'm going to do the 2 BAs and do an analysis on both of them. All right, so I have the clip of me doing the 40-second test here, and we're gonna go over it together. So the first thing I do is I just pop my 2 buffs. It is technically optimal to pop the God of Blades buff in the it is technically optimal to pop God of Blades after 10 seconds because this buff only lasts 30 seconds. But realistically, there's just too many things to pop at once, so it's fine to just pop it early. The buff isn't too big, so you're not losing out on too much, but I just want to share that. First thing I do is I pop Sukuno's and Sengoku Force. Sukuno's and Sengoku Force have the same duration. Mine is 40 seconds because I don't have it max, but they have the same duration. So you want to pop them both together. Then immediately you want to stack up to 5 stacks of Phantom Blade. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You also notice that there I pressed the Sudden Strike buff. I used Sudden Strike and I canceled it with Instant Slice so that I can immediately start attacking. The reason for the Sudden Strike is so that I could debuff the boss during the test. Once you're at 5, you always want to use Falcon's Honor immediately. And you see that Shinsoku's coming out as well. Since I'm at 5, I want to start using Shinsoku. I don't want to use Shinsoku when I'm at 0 stacks because then it won't be up when I'm at max stacks and it'll do a lot less damage. So I use Falcon's Honor to try to get to 150 energy because my Susanoo isn't out yet. And once I'm at 150 energy, I immediately place my Susanoo, 9 seconds on the clock, and this is a 30-second skill, so it'll explode towards the end, which is what we want, because towards the end we'll be at the peak of Sukuno's. So, you know, we're just holding down Blade Flash, our main attacking skill. I see Falcon's Honor and Instant Slice are up, so I press both of them. Don't dash like that, I just misclicked. Shinsoku's about to come up, so I press Shinsoku. 200 energy on my gauge, so I want to press Phantom Blade so I can upkeep it and do damage. Falcon's Honor and Shinsoku again. Oh, Falcon's Honor and Instant Slice, I mean. And I press my Origin skill here. I actually popped my Origin skill a little bit late. You want to pop it a bit earlier than this because the entire sequence is about 15 seconds. So I pop my Origin skill here. You also want to use a B-Link a bit before the Origin skill, like right before you pop it, not right after, ideally. So I use my 3 Origin skill attacks, and it fills up my energy quite a bit. I want to unload all of that energy right away, because I know that my Susanoo is about to explode here. So my Susanoo explodes, it does a ton of damage. I unload all the energy I get from my Susanoo, so because this gives me 800. Then I press Zonko, instantly cancel it with Instant Slice so I'm not locked out of the animation. This almost fills you up as well. Unload all the energy from that, and then at the end, the Origin skill will finish, and it'll do all the damage with peak Sukuno's. You can see Sukuno's is about to expire with a B-Link as well, meaning I'm at my maximum amount of damage for the explosion. And I managed to get off 100 strikes right at the end. Now, the reason why, in my opinion, I think it's fine to use 100 strikes at the end is because if you have, let's say, a Ring of Restraint, 100 strikes moves you out of the Ring of Restraint zone. So you want to use it at the end, where even if it moves you out, it doesn't really matter because now you got all of your big damage skills already within the Roar and then within the Origin skill. 100 strikes itself doesn't do too much damage relative to every other skill that you're doing. Now, obviously, this BA is 43 seconds long. That's fine. Like, you're not going to get, like, a perfect BA. But that's, like, the general idea, is you want to be able to use your Shinsoku's off cooldown, use your Falcon Honor Instant Slice off cooldown, make sure you keep up your stacks, debuff the boss, use your Zonko, Susanoo during your Origin skill, get off all the energy that they give, never use them simultaneously because then you'll overcap on energy, use the 3 Origin skill slashes, and then close the Origin skill when you're at peak Sukuno's. And you'll see that the accumulated damage here, you'll see that 100 strikes is not even more than Phantom Blade. Your Origin skill is the majority of your damage. Susanoo and Zonko are a huge chunk of your damage, same with Blade Flash. So you want to make sure that these 5 skills are used the most properly. Sengoku Force is automatic. As long as you use it, you don't have to worry about it. But these 5 skills, you want to make sure you use them at the right time because they're a huge chunk of your damage. Okay, so I have the recording here for the full rotation and we're going to go over it. So the first 45 seconds are exactly the same as the regular burst. So I pop my buffs. Debuff, get my 5 stacks. Falcon's Honor Shinsoku. Try to get to 150. Once I'm at 150, I use my Susanoo. Falcon's Honor and Insta Slice right away. Make sure to use Shinsoku. Falcon's Honor Insta Slice. Pop my Origin skill right before 25. I use Shinsoku here. I pop all 3 of my Origin skills. Get rid of all the energy from it. Falcon's Honor and Insta Slice. Get my Susanoo pops and use all my energy from that. Zonko, use all the energy from that. And my Origin skill finishes it off. And then 100 strikes right after. And essentially, while you're waiting for your 2-minute timers to come up again, you're literally just spamming Ryblade Flash, pressing Shinsoku off cooldown, and Falcon's Honor Insta Slice off cooldown as well. You just want to make sure that you're debuffing the boss with Sudden Strike every 30 seconds. I'm not even perfect on this, but that's okay. You want to just try your best while doing it. So I pop Falcon's Honor Insta Slice just off cooldown. Make sure you're keeping up your Phantom Blades. And you just want to keep doing this over and over and over again. Shinsoku's up. Like, you're just playing whack-a-mole with your skills. You're just staring at the bottom right, making sure that whenever things are up, you press them on time. So Falcon's Honor Insta Slice, or you could Sudden Strike right there just to keep up the debuff. So you want to go by your Sengoku Force timer. Sengoku Force is a good indicator of when your next burst window is going to be open. Ideally, you want to debuff right before your next burst window, because during burst, it's a bit hard to keep up the debuff. You want to focus on other things. So Sakuno, Sengoku Force again. Keep up your stacks. Put down your Susanoo as soon as it's up. It's about to come up. Boom. Falcon's Honor Insta Slice. Shinsoku's up, so use that. And just keep it going. Shinsoku's up. I see that there's 10 seconds left, so I pop my AB link. Susanoo pops here. Press Shinsoku since it's up. But I'm worried about other things, so I pop Zonko. Let's go back for a second. So I see that Susanoo is up. Unload all the energy from that. Ideally, you should be pressing Shinsoku here, but I missed one. I press Zonko here, instantly cancel it with Insta Slice, unload all the energy, and 100 strikes, all while Sakuno's and Sengoku Force is still up, because Sengoku Force also gives a buff, and my AB link is still up too. And we're just going to repeat for the next 2 minutes. The next 2 minutes are literally just going to be Falcon's Honor Insta Slice, debuffing with Sudden Strike every 30 seconds, Shinsoku off cooldown, maintaining Phantom Blade every 200 energy. Shinsoku's up, so you press it. And just keep holding down Ryblade Flash. Remember always to move a little bit every so often. The reason for that is so that you don't get animation locked. If you were to just stand still and keep attacking, you'll run out of lines and you gotta move again. Oh, Falcon's Honor Insta Slice. Continue the debuff with Sudden Strike. I see that my Sengoku Force is about to come up. And you'll see that Sakuno's is going to come up too, but I'm actually going to skip this Sakuno's. And the reason for that is if I were to use it, it wouldn't be up for my next Origin skill. So we're not going to use it for this one. We're going to skip it. We're just going to Sengoku Force like normal without Sakuno's. Even though Sakuno's is up, we're just going to Sengoku Force without it. Pop your Susanoo. Falcon's Honor Insta Slice, Phantom Blade, Shinsoku off cooldown. Now, technically, since we're not using Sakuno's, you can actually burst whenever you want here. Like, you could pop your Zonko or whatever, because you're not back-ended without Sukunos. But I'm just going to keep doing it like as if I'm back-ended as normal. So AB link here. Unload all the energy from my Susanoo. Zonko, cancel it with Insta Slice. Unload all the energy from that. And 100 strikes to finish. And we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing the last 4.5 minutes. Ride Blade Flash with Shintoku off cooldown. Debuffing with Sudden Strike and canceling the Sudden Strike with Insta Slice. And maintaining our stacks. Shintoku's up, so use that. Make sure you keep up the debuff. Shinsoku. Falcon's Instant Slice off cooldown. Shinsoku. Keep up stacks with Phantom Blade. Falcon's Instant Slice. And you see that our next Origin skill is coming up soon. So most classes, you're going to want to stop the timer when the Origin skill comes up. But with Hayato, you're going to want to stop the timer when your Sengoku Force actually comes up. And the reason for that is because our Origin skill is back-ended, we don't want to use that as the timer. We want to use the Sengoku Force as a timer because when Sengoku Force is up again, as you can see, Sengoku Force is up, so I stopped the timer here. Even though there's 26 left on my Origin. That's because once these two skills are up, that's the start of the new cycle. It starts over at this point. It doesn't start over at this point because this is at the end of the burst. So after this point, you know, the video would start all over again. It would be like this, where I would pop Sukuno's or Sengoku Force, use my Origin skill and so on. And the 6-minute rotation continues. I would skip a Sukuno so that I would have it for the next Origin skill after that, and so on and so forth. Anyways, we went through a lot, but if you watch this whole video, thank you so much. Genuinely, I worked pretty hard on it. I tried to get as much information as I could and be as clear as I can. Obviously, there's probably something that I missed, and there's probably some stuff that is still yet to be discovered, but I hope that it helped you guys out, and I would appreciate, you know, if you maybe stop by my stream or something and you want to watch me play Hayato. It is my main, so if you ever have any questions, you can always join. You can always join the Hayato Discord as well. There's an abundance of information and plenty of Hayatos that are willing to help. There is one thing that I forgot to cover that I just remembered right now, and it is the P-Poise Blade tech. So basically, you want to keybind Phantom Blade on a regular key, and you want to keybind it on a macro as well, an in-game macro. And the reason for that is you can use the in-game macro key to cast Phantom Blade in the middle of other skills. Normally, you can't use Phantom Blade in the middle of Zonko. Normally, you can't use it in the middle of Falcon's Honor. But if you were to press this version instead, you can use it in the middle of those skills. That's how, like, if you ever had a question about my BA or something like that, how is you using Phantom Blade in the middle of skills? That's how I'm doing it. I have it on my V key. Oh, and here's my keybinds because people are probably going to want to see that too. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate you guys so much. And hopefully this helps. Maybe in another 2.5 years, I'll make another update for this class. But I think we're in a really good spot right now. So yeah, enjoy while you can. Enjoy while you can.